Welcome to I Think This Is Great with Clay and Ferno. Today I am speaking with Yolanda Yvette of Yolanda Yvette Speaks. Order her book on Amazon.
Welcome to I Think This Is Great with Clay and Ferno, and I'm here with Yolanda Yvette. Thank you.
Hey, how are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm so honored. I did a little research. I bought your book. I listened to a couple of episodes of your podcast, and I took a hint from one of your recent podcasts, Miss Shelley. She said she had her logo in the background, so I made this specially for you, inspired from your podcast.
That is amazing. See, it's those little bit of nuggets that people get from listening to the podcast. I tell people all the time, like, you're going to get a little nugget. If you don't get it, I'm sure I will, because I keep writing it. I write down everything that people say, little nuggets. I have like a stack of information from all my podcasts because they have really good information for free. Like, things that you don't really think about, like, duh, why don't I just put something that's behind me or something just like, duh.
I do like your background, by the way, your bubbly
Well,
to match your bubbly personality.
Thank you, Amazon.
Exactly. That's so awesome. One of the reasons we do this podcast is to connect with people and see how they're doing and how they're getting through the pandemic, and to also offer some advice to people, but to just check in because there's a whole space out there of people doing what you're doing. And I really love what you're doing, teaching and being a coach for speakers and empowering people. So number one, I want to ask you, are you in Virginia right now? Where are you safe? Is everything cool?
Everything is good. We just have cold, rainy weather. So that's nothing new, nothing out the norm. So we're good.
Good. Yeah, because, worried about the people in Texas right now, and I hope they can stay safe and okay.
Yeah, I have family members down there. They checked in, told me that they're doing well. They just got their power back on yesterday. And I'm well, hopefully you don't get those $10,000 bills that, they're talking about.
I know, it's crazy.
Ridiculous. Oh.
Yeah. All thanks to the free market, I guess. That's what that is all about. And you have a book out that is called Speak Up. And I wanted to talk about you got it right there. Speak Up. It is available on Amazon. I grabbed it on Kindle. Hope you don't mind, but I got the digital copy.
Absolutely fine. Yep, you can go on Amazon, get the physical book, or you can get the Kindle version, or you can go to YolandaYvetteSpeaks.com and order it. I give people plenty of options.
That's amazing. One thing is that I've been doing this podcast not this podcast, but I've been podcasting for a long time. And sometimes we get asked to do public speaking, to sit on panels and in front of people. And it seems like a lot of people are scared. That seems like the number one thing. I've never had that. I'm not afraid to talk to anyone. I'm not afraid to get on stage and talk. In fact, I think I'm more comfortable on stage talking to 1,000 people than having to go to some awkward business lunch meeting. It's strange how that is.
I understand that. That's true. But see, I like networking too. But that is true. But we're, I guess, oddballs. We're the outliers because most people are terrified of speaking in front of groups. But I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and they were like, their fear is to speak in front of two people. More than two people, they shut down and start to stutter and just start to clam up. I'm like, 2 people? They're like, 2 people. If it's three, they're done for. They start sweating profusely. They forget what their next words are. I'm like, wow. Meanwhile, I'm like, the more the better. So, which is, it kind of sucks now because of the pandemic that we're in, so we can't
Mm-hmm.
really do live events anymore, which I absolutely love, because the energy in the room is something that is, you can't even describe unless
Yeah.
you're there. You feel that energy and the connections that are being made, and I miss that so much, because it's different doing it online and doing Zoom meetings and all that stuff, but
Right.
we just gotta do.
So how do you get people to not be afraid? I mean, that's a whole section in your book, I'm sure. But, is there anything that maybe somebody's watching this podcast now and they want to be inspired a little bit? How are they going to not be frozen and just be able to do it?
Well, oftentimes, like I said in my book, it's usually something that stemmed when you were a child. Like, for example, in the book, I had told a story like maybe you were that child who in class, the teacher might have said 2 plus 2 is, what is the answer? And you might have said 5. And then everyone
Mm-hmm.
laughed at you. Now you're like, I'm not going to raise my hand. I'm not going to say anything else again. Or you were the person that had made fun of somebody for getting the answer wrong. And you're
Right.
like, I don't want to be that person. So now from childhood, that has, worked its way up. Even if you think about it, because I know I used to do this as a kid. When we used to have to read out loud,
Yeah.
I would count the people and then count the paragraphs to see where I would have to read and start
Yeah.
practicing.
Yeah, I did that too. I did that same thing.
Yeah, it's like, it's the fear stems really as a child. So it's one of those things that maybe sometimes you have to go back and realize where it all stemmed from, and realize I was a child then and now I'm an adult. But to get the fear out is many different ways to do it. But for me, what I usually do, my go-to is hype music. Absolutely hype music. Like, again, you can practice and practice and practice. And even in my book, I say you don't practice to be perfect. You just practice to be better than you were the last time that you spoke.
Right.
Because
Right.
perfection is not nothing that we can really reach. But for me, it's about being calm. It's about channeling the nervous energy
Mm-hmm.
and making it into excitement. It's still the same. They're like cousins. Like, your brain reads them as cousins.
Right.
So instead of being nervous, channel it into being excited. Like, they don't know what I'm about to say. I'm about to hit the stage. I'm about to talk to these people. I'm about to give them
Mm-hmm.
something, because you have to remember they are there to hear what you have to say for a reason.
Right.
Like, they
Right.
can go anywhere, but obviously it's something that you know that they need to get from you. So,
Mm-hmm.
so that's how that works. But even as in school, when we had to do presentations, I would always have my hype music. I would listen to my music before, it was time for me to speak. I still do it now. It just gets all the jitters away, and it just makes me more excited, because even if you look at the Olympics, for example, the swimmers, because I
Sure.
love Summer Olympics, you will see them with their headphones on. You will see the people in track with their headphones on, because
Focus.
they are focusing. They're tuning out everything that's around. They're getting themselves hyped, whatever their music choice that they decide to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
My go-to song is Eminem's "Lose Yourself." That's my song. Why?
It's like
Don't
the
know.
ultimate hype song. It's
It is.
it's
I'm just like,
exactly.
and I just get in there, and I
You
just
can do.
and I love it, and it just gets me ready, and I'm like, all right, now that's done. Even if I listen to it one, or usually it's like 2 times, and I'm like, woo, all right, done. And I tell people oftentimes, excuse yourself, go to the bathroom before you know it's your
Mm-hmm.
time to speak. Excuse yourself, listen to, because everybody usually carries their phone. Listen to your song,
Sure.
and then go back in there and just kill it. You just kill it. And then you just know the next time you speak is going to be better than the time that you just spoke just now.
Wow, it's so great, because that is just one little tip, but I think that can really go a long way. So, how did you get started with public speaking, and how do you make money at it? I mean, you don't have to reveal all your secrets, but one of the things that we've been doing here with my podcast, my other podcast, we've just been cranking at it, doing it over and over and over again. Like, we've never had sponsors, we've never made any money, but we just do it because we like to talk to each other. But
Right.
now I kind of want to get into the space of, well, you know what? I'm the expert in a few things that only I know about around my local area. And I like to be asked to do stuff for free, and I'll do stuff for free, but getting paid is way better.
Did you see my face? Like, for free? Wait a minute now. We got to monetize. We got to make some money. We can't do that, Clay.
I know.
We can't do everything for free because I tell people oftentimes, people respect what they pay for.
Yes.
So, I mean, people will jump at things that are free, but it hits differently when they have to pay for it. So, well, let me answer your first question, how I got into public speaking. I was always technically, I guess, a public speaker. Even as a child, I spoke on stages in church. I was always in like I don't know how things just always fell in my lap to, hey, we want you to say this or we want you to read this. And I'm like,
will
I
you
don't
read
want
this
to.
poem? You need to read this poem. Somebody
Like
needs to read it.
I was so shy. I was this shy child. So I'm like, why? And I would mess up. And then all of a sudden, one day, things just clicked. I remember being in 12th grade and we had to do a speech. And I told my teacher, Mr. Scott, I was like, listen, I know it's supposed to be X amount of minutes, but I'm guaranteeing you I'm going to be done in like one. Because I knew I was going to be like, because I was so nervous. And that's how it would come out. I started talking really fast. And that's exactly what happened. And I don't know why. Listen, I know myself better than he did. So he didn't mark me down for it, because I told him it was going to happen. But so just using all those experiences and then growing up and going to college and doing public speaking in that realm, it just led to that. But being a public speaking coach, that ended up happening because I got tired of listening to people in workshops and conferences and even sitting in classrooms. And I'm like, you're leaving so much money on the table by not knowing how to speak effectively, how not to make the next sale while you're selling. You can sell from the stage. And I'm like, they're leaving so much money out there. Let me help them. Let me show them how they can do this. Wow. Because a lot of people, they're in it to make money. Yes, they're in it to help people, but they also want to make a profit as well.
Sure.
So I'm like, I can show them how to do this. And that's how the public speaking coach was born for me. But I just love public speaking. The little shy little girl, public speaking, which is so crazy.
And so that's so beyond the book, which I mentioned before, you just mentioned the coaching part. So how does one get coached by Yolanda Yvette? How do you go about that?
Well, they go to YolandaYvetteSpeaks.com, YOLANDA YVETTESPEAKS.com. I offer workshops. Yeah. I offer workshops. I offer one-on-one sessions. So that's what they do to get me, because I want them to be better at what they're doing. I want them to break out of the chains that they have in their mind of that they can't do it. They don't know how to do it. Because listen, the money is out there. It's a lot of money out there. There's a lot of people that need, even if they're not about wanting to make money, they just want to be more comfortable, because you have people who are in boardrooms, executives that have to speak to other people. You have people that are in MLMs that have to speak to people. They're selling Tupperware, or they're selling whatever. They're public speakers as well. Preachers, they're public speakers. There's so many people, car salesmen. That's what they're doing. So some people are just like, I need to know how I can make it better for me, how I can get comfortable. I also go through the process with my clients of cultivating their message specifically for their business. Because there's a lot of public speaking businesses out there who, and this is where I differentiate myself from them. They are so robotic. They're like, don't put your hands in your pocket. Don't do this. Don't do that. I'm like, be yourself.
That's not natural. I mean, I have to edit the podcast and my other podcasts, and I found a software tool called Descript, which will take out the ums and the likes. For when you're listening to the podcast, it's a little distracting to get that stuff, but it's really hard for the two of us to have a conversation and have us not do, like, it just doesn't, it doesn't flow right.
Right. And I used to say that all the time, because I used to be the person, if somebody says a lot, they're like, and I will start counting how many times they say it's distracting for me. But I'm like, you can still say them. It's not it's not like a cardinal sin. And a lot of public speaking groups will make it seem like that. Like, you can't say this and don't do that. I'm like, be yourself. Like, people will resonate with you. if you are you. So we go, let's see, I say, but that's just me.
You're taking a second to pause, and it's
Yeah,
so natural to say.
Right. Some people, it's life or death with them. Like, they can't say it. If they do, they get knocked points, they get knocked down. I'm like, we don't have time for that. We're about making this money. If you say I don't care, just don't say it a whole lot. I go over hand gestures and how to use them properly and how not to use them so much, because some people talk with their hands a whole lot. And I remember one girl, she was like, but I'm from New York, and this is how I talk. I talk with my hands a lot. I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, you do, but you don't have to look like you're directing a choir. So we went through the steps, to help her with that, which I just love to do because I'm authentic and I am straightforward. I can joke and I can laugh with my clients, but they also know they can feel my passion about it. And we're serious when we need to be. We can joke when we need to be,
Sure.
but the ultimate thing is the result. And that's what they get when they work with me, is the result.
That's awesome. So we mentioned a little bit about it before. We're in this unprecedented pandemic, and a lot of things had to change. I've never done a video podcast before, but I thought that doing this season of the podcast on video would help engage a little bit better. I've got a new setup here where I can look right in the camera and I can see you with a teleprompter style thing, and that's just a technical thing. But in order for me to connect with my guests, I want to be able to just look like I'm looking them in the eye. So I'm just wondering, how big was this pivot for you about a year ago to go to online? Because if you're doing one-on-one coaching, was that in person only, or did you do the Zoom call thing before?
I did, but not to the magnitude that I had to. Like, I think all business people, all entrepreneurs had to pivot at either you pivoted or you just stood still and just said, oh, well, I don't know what to do, and you froze. So I get it, doing how you had to now do the face-to-face with the Zoom, which I love, because that's what I do on mine too, because I feel like people open up more. It makes it more personable. The conversation flows better. So, but yeah, you had to find different ways to do, like, conferences, like I said, are online. My workshops are online, things like that online, which is amazing because now you're able to interact with people that you never thought possible. Like, I had people from Vietnam in my workshops before, and just England, just all over. I'm just like, well, look at this. So now I have connections in different countries.
Yeah.
That I never would have thought. Yeah. So, like, even like Jamaica, I've talked to plenty of people in Jamaica. I'm like, so when I come there, they're like, yes, when you come here, we're gonna have to do this, this, and this. I'm like, amazing. You make new friends everywhere you go. And I said, and being someone who loves to talk, I'm all about this. Like, I've always imagined myself speaking on stages in other countries, and I'm like, this is just helping me open those doors.
You're setting it up right now. It's funny you mentioned that about Vietnam, because a few weeks ago I had my first call with someone in Australia, and it was exactly 9 a.m. for him and 9 p.m. for me. And my friend was like, "You're doing a call at 9 a.m. Or 9 p.m.?" I said, "Yeah, but the other guy said he just woke up."
Right. I've had that too, and I was like, and it was a lady. We were doing a workshop, or no, we were doing a one-on-one, and she just sounded a little tired. I'm like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "It's like 11:40 here at night." I said, "Oh, bless your heart!" Like, like the dedication. Like, I truly appreciated it. It was crazy, but you have to take into consideration now, the time differences, but it's opening up many doors, and I'm like, I kind of like it. I kind of like it.
Yeah, once we get...
I miss the live stuff, but I like the fact that I'm reaching people that I never really thought I would be reaching.
And that brings me to your podcast, which is very fun to listen to. This is great talking to you here. And I listened to a couple of episodes. You use Anchor for that. And that's just an audio podcast. Am I correct? Or I don't know how you do it.
Audio as of now. I've had people say, go ahead and start doing videos and putting them on YouTube. I'm like, yeah, I don't really know how. Like, because for me, I am such a big component. I'm not a techie. I stay in my lane. I'm like, I can talk, but I'm like, let me find somebody to show me how to put things, even my audio versions of stuff. They say you could put just the audio things on YouTube. I'm like,
right.
really? I'm like, oh, okay. And then I tried to figure it out. I'm like, I'm lost. Let me stop.
Yeah, you could have someone take care of that for you too, because I think that it's important for us, maybe as managers or people that are, if we're running our own business,
Mm-hmm.
asking for help, I think, is always key, right?
Listen, I love Fiverr. Fiverr is one of my favorite places to go, especially when you find good people, Fiverr and Upwork. And like, I will reuse the same people for certain things, especially when I find out their skill sets. And I'm like, and it doesn't cost a whole lot. And especially, and this is a tip for people when using Fiverr and Upwork, you don't have to pay the price that they're saying. You can people are like, oh, they charge $25 and they're paying $25. You don't have to. You can negotiate with them. You be like, hey, will you accept XYZ dollars? And they will. So don't think that you have to pay them just the number that they have up there. So listen, in my mind, I'm always thinking business, business, let's make a deal. So
yeah, that was great. You sent me over that really pro looking speaker sheet, a one sheet, and I hadn't seen a one sheet in a while. I'm in the music business, so mostly people are just passing around MP3s and listening to this band or whatever. But yeah, I was like, oh, I remember having a one sheet, and you're like, you should use my Fiverr person.
I told her, I was like, hey, I'm gonna throw people at you. She was like, okay. I was like, because I feel like her work was so phenomenal, and
it's really great.
Thank you. And her turnaround was quick. So I'm like, yeah, you're good. I'm not gonna pass nobody on to somebody who sucks. So I mean, people call me, I'm like a phone book for people. They're like, Yolanda, do you know somebody who does this or that? I'm like, I sure do. And I'm like, and that's how networking is supposed to go. It's not just only for yourself, it's for who you can put in contact with the other person. So, and I love it. And I love it. A lot of people forget about one sheets and speaker sheets, but I feel like it's very important. It sets you apart from the next person if they one. So
because I set up a few interviews last weekend, and yours was the only one I got a speaker sheet from. I had to do all the research myself. I said, hey, how come these other people aren't using Fiverr?
Hello. See, this is what I'm saying. It sets you apart. It really does. And it doesn't take much at all just to say attach file.
Yeah.
Like that's all it is, attach file. And it depends on where you want to go and how you want to grow your business. You're going to need a media kit. You're never going to get on the news saying, hit me up. No, they're going to want to know about you. They're not going to want to research you. You need to send them your resume. So
I know from booking bands and dealing with live music events and things like that and even hiring for assistants or other people to like run in a nightclub, etc. I don't have time to read the whole thing. If your email is good, that's good enough. And if your resume is good and it doesn't have much else to it, I'm going to read one or the other. And a lot of stuff's going to get lost. People don't have time.
Yep. Exactly. Our attention spans are so short, and it's just getting shorter and shorter by the moment. And if you're a busy person too, you might as well cancel Christmas.
I like to think that people like us that have some experience, you can kind of tell with that first impression stuff, right? Like you can kind of say, oh, this might not be a really well formatted resume, but I can see what's on it at a first glance to see if that's the person I want to hire, or just how people present themselves. And even if you have to look through 100 applicants, you can read it down pretty quick because we've trained ourselves over the course of just our experience.
Yeah, it's like keywords that we're looking for, and like, okay, person has like you said, their resume may not be all the way professional, but what are the keywords that I'm picking up? Does this person have potential? Or in and out. And our attention span. we don't read much. I saw one resume and I laughed at her so much because I knew her personally, and
Mm-hmm.
her resume was stapled. And I said, wait a
Mm.
minute. I said, your resume should never be stapled. And she had like 5 pages. And I'm like, wow, no, ma'am, we're not doing that. I'm like, I refuse to send you out here looking like that with your resume stapled with 5 pages. And the font was like 8, 10, 20. It was so bad. I was like, no, you're not doing that. You can't do that. So,
Get it down to one page, maybe a page of references or some other
yeah.
supplementary information. But also, you don't know that the person that's doing it needs to take a stack of them and send them through a scanner so they could read them on their
Yeah,
laptop. So
because now that's what they do. They scan resumes now. People don't really read them. They scan them for keywords. And if those keywords pop out, guess what? You're about to get a phone call.
yeah, and they can do that all in like have an AI, have a robot do it.
Yep, that's how it goes. Like they scan them, and if those words pop out, you got it.
And another thing I saw on your one sheet was that you are able to help people realize their aha moments. Can you tell me what that means?
Their aha moment it really is a moment. I love people's face. They're like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like that's that's what it ends up happening. Like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like I've been working so hard, or oh, that's all I had to do in order to get my next booking was do this. Like, duh. I call it an aha moment, but it's duh. Oh my goodness. Like all of those moments. And it makes me laugh every time I see somebody's face and they're like, oh, that makes so much sense. That was because sometimes people have a tendency to overthink, and then
Mm-hmm.
they overthink what they just thought, and then they overthink that too. And I'm like, just narrow it. Just come on, come back to me, come back. And so because sometimes I'm able to see things that other people can't see,
Right.
and that sets me apart as well. So you're like, hey, let's do this for your business, or let's do this for your job, or let's do this for your career, whatever it is, your speaking, your talk, whatever. And they're like, I never thought about that before. And I'm like, exactly. That's why it's a thing.
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
you talk it out loud and see what happens.
And that's unique to you too. That seems like a special skill set you have to be able to get that sort of insight into what people are doing, like based on your experience. I feel like you're really in tune with that. It's great.
And that's crazy because you know what? I wanted to be at one point in my life, I wanted to get into marketing because I'm like, certain things just make sense to me. Like I'm able to think of something that would be good to market. Like, oh, that all you had to do was say this right here. All you had to do was do that right there. Like, or I look at certain people's marketing ads. I'm like, that's so stupid, or they missed the mark on this. And so when people tell me their business or they want to know how they can do something, I'm like, okay, give me a second. And then it just comes to me like, all you have to do is do this, which is funny because I'm like, it never comes to certain people's mind to be like, this is all I had to do. I'm like, that's all you had to do. That's all
Well,
but that goes back to us not liking to ask for help either. So
right. Yeah, that's the other thing. I think that one thing that I struggle with almost daily is as a writer, as a podcaster, as someone that's creating a lot, and I create a lot for my day job, especially for my more importantly for my day job. I want to have someone proofread a marketing email before it goes out, like basic sentence spelling grammar type things, but also if we're going to test some subject lines, why don't we go for a couple of different things? Like somebody else reading my content might come up with a better headline than me that's been sitting there creating it from top to bottom.
Absolutely. That is so good. Absolutely. But sometimes we have the tendency to keep things so close to us and we don't want nobody to help and we don't want nobody to know. And this is my baby and blah, 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 blah. You're doing yourself a huge disservice because with somebody else's eyes, they can pick up the the mistakes that you made, because we just, even with all the grammar stuff that we have, we'll still read it like we thought we wrote it. And
Right.
until somebody else is like, what did you say? Or, you missed a word or whatever. But even like you said, the subject line, whatever it could be, it's more catchy than what you said.
Yeah,
And you have to
because
be willing to accept help and accept somebody offering you an opinion or a great critique.
and as creators, as podcasters, and as writers, just in general, content creators, the things that we are doing, we sometimes maybe forget that we're the ones that are making everything. So there's plenty of people that aren't creating anything, and that's their choice. It's not their calling. That's not what they want to do. But I think that a certain amount of risk and a certain amount of quantity has to happen for our experience to grow and for us to be like, you can't be so precious about these 5 blog posts because they need to go up, but you should maybe have somebody proofread them. But maybe that person that's proofreading them doesn't have to create 5 blog posts a day, so they have the kind of the mental energy to look at it.
And we wonder why sometimes we're so tired or we get burnt out. Because I remember hitting that wall, and I was so burnt out, and I was like, I'm done. I don't feel like it. And I had somebody say that you need to get help. Like, you need to get people to help you. And I'm like, but
Well, let me ask you what I'm sorry to interrupt, but what was the thing that was the broke the camel's back thing? What really pushed you, that because it had to have been that one extra thing, or maybe it wasn't one extra thing. Maybe it was just, I have to do a speaking gig and I have to write my book and I have to do my podcast this week and I just don't know how I'm going to do it all.
Yep, that's what it was. This book, along with the podcast, along with it was when I was creating the book. I was right at the end. It was just that, and trying to push it out, and how that was even coming about, because
Like
it was
nervous about it, and energy.
And people were like, "You wrote a book, though," and I'm just like, whatever. And like, I couldn't even really appreciate the fact that I wrote a book, because I was just like, yeah, I did. And
Yeah,
because I was so over it. I was so over it until they were like, you need to get some help. You need to ask people for help. Don't take it all on yourself. I was like, but I mean, okay. And I did, and it helped me. And then closing my laptop at a certain time, I'm like, I can't work after a certain point. I had to make rules for myself, because I know me. I will sit there and work all night long and research and do things. And I'm like, I will not. I will shut my laptop down and pick it back up tomorrow.
I have a couple of good rules for that people might find helpful. But I have a pretty nice computer, but I keep it charged. And then if I work and then the battery's like going down to 1%, or I just work. I'll close it then. I'll charge it and I'll walk away from it. I say that the computer is telling me that I shouldn't do any more work on it right now.
Oh, that is so good. I like that. I'm going to steal that, Clay.
So that might just be for an hour a day or something, but I have my watch tells me to get up and walk around, and it's even though I'm like working from home or working from an office, it's a little bit lonely, because most of the time I'm by myself. So I have to remind myself to go. I have to remind myself to eat lunch. I have to remind myself to not stare at the computer right now. And then I think of all the time in the day. I really think that I use up a lot of that for good, and cranking out content and doing stuff. But then, when it comes to the weekend, you just, you know what? I'm not going to spend a lot of time with my emails right now. This can wait till Monday morning.
Yeah, because I know on TikTok, for example, I'll get on TikTok, and you can lose 3 hours easily just scrolling. It's that one that pops up like, hey, stop scrolling. You've been up here for, I'm like, oh, thank goodness they came up here. Because I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to stop right now. I don't know who that is, but they'll pop up. I'm like, hey, stop. You've been scrolling for such and such. And I'm like, you know what? They're right. And I'm gonna get off the phone for a little bit. But also that goes back to like I'm really getting into learning how to automate stuff so I don't have to put
So
out
good.
emails myself and things of that nature. I'm like, I'm still learning how to do it, but automation is amazing because now you can spend that time doing something else, you know. So when you learn how to
100%. Totally agree with
automate
that.
this, yeah.
I helped my friend with his website for real estate, and
Hmm.
what part of his package that we didn't get to when I was helping him with some design stuff, but he said in a couple months I'll have reached a certain point where this starts sending out generated emails from my leads,
Hmm.
etc. And I was like, wow, that really is great, because I have spent a lot of time learning. Like in the pandemic, I spent a lot of time learning how to video edit, and learning different skills and beefing up my skills. Even when booking this podcast, is I've never done a lot of like outreach to people I didn't know to have them invite them on the show, and I'm so glad I did. I've had such great conversations, including this one. And but yeah, I do. I'm still like I'm learning, trying to build up those skills a little bit every day. But also, if I can not spend 3 hours in Photoshop, but I could hire somebody on Fiverr to do something for me, then I can go write the next 10 blog posts.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You're putting money in someone else's pocket. Now they're able to feed their family. It's a
Feels good.
cycle. It's right. And you're also getting time to either work back on your business in another area or spend time with your family or whoever, or just watch TV and binge out on, for yourself.
Yeah.
So,
TikTok.
but technically your work is still getting done.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not the one stressing out about doing it. So yeah, when you can hire somebody else to do it, if you can get your stuff automated, it is amazing when you can sit there and you can write one email or three emails and they automatically send out every couple of days to these certain people, and it's wonderful.
That's great. And then also that, I don't know if you address this in your book, in your coaching, but the downtime is important too, right? Like it's absolutely key. Otherwise, what are you even doing this for? You know?
Right. Right. Self-care is I had to learn self-care and self-love. I had to learn that because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
but I have a goal. Like I have things. So even in my room, I had them all over. Like on one side of my room, I have them on both sides. There's pictures, not like they're like actual camera pictures. So I went
Mm-hmm.
to like Walgreens to have them printed out of the things that what I'm working towards. Like going back whenever cruises open back up. That'll be amazing.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun.
I love cruising, so I have a cruise ship on them. I have, a maid as one of them. I have a truck because I
Mm-hmm.
want to buy my father a truck. Just certain things, and I have them on both sides. I'm like, this is what I'm working for, but then I'm also have
Wow.
relaxation. So it's like this is also why I'm working, but I know I'm about to take a break because I need this. I need this self love, this self care. So I had I haven't did it in a while since the pandemic, but like sound baths, I love going to the sound bath with the Tibetan gongs and the
That sounds
bowl.
nice. I don't even know about that. With audio,
Is what?
it's like a spa sort of
No,
thing.
no, like you lay on the floor and they have like the big gong and they have like crystal singing bowls and like the Tibetan bowls, like that they go like
Mm,
ooh.
yeah, trying to go
They
there
have
in
like
my
a
head right
whole
now.
bunch of them and wind chimes, and you just lay there and the vibration. It's just so peaceful. So I'm like, once a month, I do that, massages, whatever it is that floats your boat, that makes you happy, even if it's
Mm-hmm.
just watching TV and binging out on your favorite show. But
Sure.
I'm pretty sure everybody has watched all of their episodes of their favorite show by now with this pandemic.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I have nothing else to watch. But it is so very important because that's what I wasn't doing when I got burnt out. I was just
Mm-hmm.
going and going and going. And I'm like, I can't because I'm not good to anybody. at all, not even myself. So I was like, I'm taking these days to relax. I'm doing this for myself. I'm going outside and just driving to the beach and just looking at the water. I'm going to do stuff, and it's very, very, very important. Don't just work and work and work, because, like you said, what are you doing it all for?
Yeah, and the way
enjoy it.
Yeah,
what's the point?
I think of it too, like I would always be like resentful sort of toward like my bosses going on vacation or something, but then I would be like, why am I not going on vacation?
Right, like that's what they're supposed to do. Why can't I go? And there are some people like, I can't take off because I'm like, but you can. You're telling yourself that you can't take off, but you can. Even if it's about saving, and you're like, I'm going to work here, and my goal is going to be this, for I can get this right here. That's your math problem. I'm doing this to do this, that's going to equal this.
Yeah.
And whatever that is, I don't care if it's going to, again, Jamaica, or going to visit the person, the people that you met in Australia, whatever.
Yeah.
Or, going in the next city and getting a hotel room for, the weekend. It can be something as simple as that. Just going to the next city.
It goes so
just
far.
Getting out of your own house. Yeah, getting out of your own house and going to a hotel room, it hits differently. It's different. It just makes you feel better. I don't know what it is.
It's so true. So I before we wrap up, I want to ask, how long have you been on this grind with your book and your podcast and the speaking and coaching, and when was the last time you were checked in to an office every day and decided not to do that? Or I don't even know if that's where you came from, but just asking.
I'm like, when was the last time I was in the office? Actually, I remember I quit my office job a couple of years ago. I'm like, I'm going to school, because I didn't like what they had me doing. So I was like, bump this. I'm going back to school, get my bachelor's degree in business management. Like, that was my whole reason for quitting. And so I was like, I'm going to school. And I did, and I graduated, and I haven't looked back at an office since then. I have not. My book was birthed through the pandemic. So I was like, I'm going to use my time wisely. This is part of the pivot. I was like, I'm going to write a book. I always said I wanted to write a book. I never knew what my book was going to be about. But I was like, well, you might as well write about what you know about, right?
Exactly.
So that's what I did. And I feel like every speaker needs to have a book. That is one of the things I taught. Every speaker, every coach needs to have a book, because it makes you more credible. It gives them something they can take with them. It's like a calling card, like, here, take my book. Because sometimes, you even give away free books sometimes, because guess what? Now they're going to be like, hey, I want to work with you. Okay, so now that one book became, a $500 client. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, whatever it may be. So that's what happened. My podcast came out of the pandemic as well, because I was like, hey, I went on somebody's podcast and I was like, this is pretty cool. I'm going to do this. And then I literally said, I don't have a huge setup. I have the absolute basic minimum thing you could possibly use.
Sound good to me.
I'm doing it. I'm like, I have a little camera and a microphone, and that's it. I don't have because I remember seeing the guys he had like 2 separate headphones and sets, and he had like, the Rodecaster thing.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I don't know.
You
about
don't need
any
all
of
that.
I was like, but I have a laptop and a camera, and people ask me, they're like, how do you do a podcast? I was like, I'm going to tell you now. Mine is the most minimal thing out there, but it's working. It's working. So
sounds great to me when I listen to your podcast. It sounds great.
Oh, thank you. See, I don't know about it. See, and I'm so, again, not a techie. I don't really know about editing. So I'm like, mine is so, and I tell my guests, like, it's unedited, and it's going to sound like we just having a regular conversation. If the dog barks, the dog barks. If the kids cry, they're going to hear it too. I don't know what to tell you.
That's actually a bonus that I do with this podcast, is I release it a day early unedited audio for the people that subscribe to my Substack. So I didn't have anything to offer, patrons of the show or what I'm trying to do here. So I thought that would be great, that if somebody's paying, they can get the podcast a day early. They want to see the video, they want to listen to the nice version, they could do it the next day. That's fine. And they might not even download it. But I just thought it would be good to incentivize people with just one thing.
Amazing. I mean, that's not my lane. I'm like, listen, you're going to get this unedited version, and it's going to sound like two people just sitting here having a conversation, and people like it. They're like, it makes me feel like I'm there, like I'm listening in on the conversation. I'm like, well, that's all I have for you, because I don't know how to do the editing and stuff. I'm not that techie, and I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. Maybe one day I'll learn it, but that's not where I'm focused on right now.
You can always find Fiverr podcast editors, but honestly, I enjoy listening to your show. It makes me feel like at home, like I just feel like I'm listening to my family talking or something.
That's exactly what it is. Yolanda Yvette Speaks, y'all, for y'all to, who don't know the podcast name. So yeah, Yolanda Yvette Speaks.
I will link up everything, including our Fiverr friend, and maybe I'll buy a book and send it to a lucky winner here, and we'll do some cool, fun stuff like that. Is there any parting words you have for us, Yolanda Yvette?
My parting words are, I think this is great.
Thank you.
And I do. This has been amazing, and I thank you so very much. And really, my tip for everyone is just do it. Stop waiting. Stop contemplating. This has been your announcement. Govern yourself accordingly. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is that you want to do, stop waiting on whatever that confirmation is, or somebody to say yes to you when it's starting that business or starting that podcast or starting that clothing line or makeup line, whatever it is. Just start. It's better than not doing it. And we all make mistakes in business, and we learn from them.
I love it. And that's exactly my philosophy and the philosophy of I think this is great. So I'm so honored to have you on my show. And when your next book comes out, whenever that is, even if it's in a little while, please come back on the show. I would love to talk to you again.
It's already in the works. So, yep.
Okay. Awesome. Well, absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your night, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate you.
Bye-bye. Well, I'll let you know when it's up.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Yolanda Yvette. You're the best.
Bye.
Please like, subscribe, and leave your comments below. Support the podcast at claynferno.substack.com. PayPal.me/CLAYNFERNO. Music by House of Harm. Support the artists at houseofharm.bandcamp.com.